Greetings, students, and welcome to this episode of The Professor Travel. I am your host, The Professor Travel, coming to you from Orange County, California. This is the website, the vlog, and the podcast that you come to in order to learn more about different travel destinations. This is where you go as a community to discuss more. Hopefully, this will inspire you to travel more and ultimately to enjoy life more. Now, you can reach me at a variety of different social media platforms, starting, of course, with my website, which is at theprofessortravel.com. On YouTube, Facebook, and now on TikTok. You can find me there at The Professor Travel. If you're a Instagrammer and you like to see pictures, I can be there at, you can find me there at the_professor_travel. If you're a Twitterer, you can find me there at The Professor TR1. And then finally, if you are a blogger, you can find me on Blogspot at theprofessortravel.blogspot.com. Today, I'm welcoming back another one of my visiting professors, Professor Morissa, Pawl, Frederico. How are you doing today?
I am good. I am good. We have a nice cold day, cold, crisp, but sunny day in Oregon, which is an unusual thing.
Well, that's amazing, as is this picture, by the way, but we'll get into that in just a second. Now, before we get started, and just for the sake of those who may have not seen any of the million of videos that you've done previously, can you tell us a little bit about your educational background and maybe a few places that you've traveled in the past?
You bet. Well, I have an MBA and two PhDs. I'm all but dissertation in. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
I am a professor, actually. I teach international business law, and what have you. One of the reasons I got into that is because of my love of travel, and I had spent 25 years in the travel industry. Which was a perfect fit. I owned some companies. I ran some companies. Just the gamut. But I've traveled all over the world, about 47 countries. You can see my scratch off map behind me.
Nice.
We get to part of it anyway. I'm not nearly done. I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. Get it?
There you go. Now, this picture that we have on the screen here, talk to me about the story behind this picture.
Well, I had been talking to my best friend who actually I hadn't seen since 2011, and this was 2018.
Okay.
And we decided to meet up. She lives in South Africa, and we decided to meet up in Vietnam. So this was our first night, and we decided to go have cocktails near the hotel we were staying at. Just a walkabout when we first got there.
Got it.
And I ended up with a beer label on my head. You see, I'm quite buzzed there and having a great time. We kept ordering beer after beer after beer. Of course, we did have a little pho to go with it, but
nice.
Vietnamese soup, for those that don't know. And that's how that ended up, our first night in Vietnam.
And again, for the people that are on the podcast, this is a lovely picture of Professor Morissa with a beer label on her forehead. So you definitely have to look at the YouTube channel. It's definitely got a story all to itself.
Oh yeah.
So again, like you were alluding to, we're going to talk about Vietnam today. So I don't really know that much about it, and I'm looking for more information in order to understand it. But talk to me a little bit about why you decided to go here and what was the driving motivation behind that.
Well, combination of things. My brother was a Vietnam vet. And he swore he'd never go back. And he's passed on now. And I wouldn't go during his lifetime in deference to him. But it had been a really on my bucket list to go to Vietnam. I'd always wanted to see it. And I'd heard how wonderful and fantastic it was. And I thought, you know what? I want to go. My friend also that lives in South Africa, Karen, she wanted to go. It was on her bucket list. So it was kind of a spur of the moment thing. And we just, did it. We just, we took it like 3 months to plan it, but, we just decided to go because on our bucket list.
Yeah. And that was actually going to be my next question is like, how long exactly did you need to plan for something like this?
With Vietnam, you don't need to plan that far in advance. The only thing you need to do is really watch out for good airfares. And I always go in shoulder season. We've talked about this before, which is why, quarantine right now is really killing me because this is the time when I do a lot of my travel.
Yeah.
especially, our winter, I tend to go places like Southeast Asia, the warmer climates, that because it's cooler there than it would be during their summer. It's easier for me. I can handle it a little bit better. So yeah, that was part of the planning and part of the reason for when we went.
Can we talk about shoulder season again for just 1 second? Because I know in some of the earlier videos you mentioned this, but again, for those people who haven't seen this or who may be listening on the podcast, what exactly is shoulder season?
Great, thanks for asking. Having been in the travel industry for 25, almost 30 years, actually, I'm aging myself there. Shoulder season is well, you've got 3 seasons in travel. You've got high season, you've got shoulder season, and then you've got low season. So low season, of course, is when your prices are going to be the lowest to a destination, and every destination has a different high, low, and shoulder. Your low season is when the prices are the lowest because travelers aren't going there. Your high season is the season where everybody wants to be there. Typically, a country's summer, not always.
Mhm.
And then shoulder season is that little in between period where, we really call it, if you think about seasons from a perspective of the US, fall and spring
Mhm.
would be considered shoulder season.
So,
And,
oh, I'm sorry. I was
no,
just
no,
saying.
and oftentimes you can get really good prices, you can get good deals. For me personally, I think the weather is sometimes the best in shoulder season. Not only are you going to get less people, you're going to get better prices, and the weather is not too hot, not too cold in most places, and really just like baby bear. It's just perfect.
So let me give you an example. So let's say, for example, I'm going to India. And if I'm going to India, the shoulder season might be smack dab in the middle of their monsoon season slash like a summer season because you don't want to, because like, for example, in October, the weather is perfect. You have Diwali, there's a lot of different things going on. So travel deals, I imagine in the what we would call the summertime, for us, would probably be fairly low to India. Would you agree with that, or is that?
Because it's going to be way too hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Way too hot. So yeah, October, perfect in India, shoulder season. Every time I've gone to India, I've been there a few times. I've gone in February.
Hmm.
February, September, October, February, March, my favorite times to travel pretty much anywhere in the world.
Hmm. That gives me options, and again, thinking in the future because Holi is in March
Absolutely.
usually as well too.
Oh,
So
Holi's in a perfect time to go to India.
absolutely. So talk to me. What was the visa process like to go to Vietnam?
The visa process for Vietnam is really interesting. It's very simple, much simpler than I expected. You can go online, you pay for your visa, but all you get is a letter. You literally get a letter of invitation. So, and you can just Google this. This is really simple. Just say, letter of invitation, Vietnam.
Okay.
And then you actually get your physical visa and pay for it at the border when you land.
Okay.
So you take your letter of invitation, you take your passport. At the time I went, it was $40. I think it's probably the same. You go to the counter, you hand it to them. You may wait a little while because it depends on, has the system gone down or what have you. You get your visa and then you go right through. So, and it's done right there. You also bring 2 passport photos with you.
Oh,
Very, very simple process.
okay, cool. And then any special travel medications? Because I know there's a little bit of a jungle in some of the areas of Vietnam, not necessarily the cities, but like right outside of the cities.
Yeah, it depends on where you're going. Now, we brought anti-malarials with us. We never ended up taking them,
Okay.
but we brought them with us just in case we decided, to go into an area. And we were going into one area. We thought we might need it. Turns out we didn't, so we didn't take them.
Okay, that makes sense. Talk to me about the packing process. What are you going to take when you're going to Vietnam?
Well, Vietnam is really easy to pack for because any season you're going, you really want shorts.
Mhm.
Especially if you're going to go down south, it's hot all the time.
Okay.
We had, several pairs, a couple pairs of jeans, t-shirts, and then a jacket so that we could layer because in northern Vietnam, it would, get a bit chilly sometimes. Chilly for them. I mean, they were wearing heavy coats. I was coming from Oregon, I was literally wearing a t-shirt and
Yeah.
nothing else. But well, I mean, jeans. But I was, and they would look at me like I was insane. But yeah, so it's layers, but it's not too many layers because it is going to get warm. So packing is really simple. You can pack fairly light.
And are
And,
you bringing?
and I would pack light because you can buy cheap t-shirts and all sorts of things there.
So you basically like you have my strategy where you deplete some of your items that you bring with you in order to make room for souvenirs and stuff like that.
Absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
that makes sense. Now, when you're flying out, are you flying out of SeaTac or are you flying out of Portland?
I flew out of SeaTac.
SeaTac. Okay, that makes more sense because it's international airport. Not that Portland's not, but I don't necessarily think it goes to all the cities in
It
April.
doesn't. It is Portland is an international airport and is expanding, but it's in order to go. Excuse me. You can fly out of Portland, but you have to go to Seattle.
Yeah.
So I opt for the 3-hour drive or 2.5-hour drive to the airport, and park there just for convenience.
And how long were you going to be in Vietnam for?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. So you actually parked in SeaTac for 2 weeks? Is that what I
I
understand?
did. I did. Well, originally I had a friend that was living there who ended up moving. How inconvenient.
All right, right? Don't they
Right?
know I'm supposed to be traveling in the
I
future?
know. For years, she said, "Come to my house, park at my house," and yeah, then moved to the Florida. So I did, but I bought through airportparking.com, and I highly recommend them. I usually don't endorse a lot of things, but I highly recommend airportparking.com because you get package deals sometimes with a hotel, one night's hotel. I did not use that. I stayed at an Airbnb the night before. I went the day before. And then early in the morning, I went and parked my car. And it really was relatively inexpensive. I think it worked out maybe $7 a day.
That's not too bad at all. That's for my students that are out there. You kind of have to weigh the option of whether or not you want to Uber something, whether you want to park there. Oftentimes, like when I fly out of LAX from Orange County, for the convenience of it, I might just because I've weighed it, and yeah, it's less expensive to get like a super shuttle or whatever. But then you have to wait for the super shuttle to pick you up, and then you have to
Right.
go to all the stop offs that they're dropping everybody else off at, and and deal with
Exactly.
that. With Uber, sometimes it's not as easy as you may think it is. So, I mean, it might just be more convenient for you to pay for that parking and to have your own car available and for you to be able to
Mhm.
leave the spot as quickly as you want. Again, it's up to you as the student how you want to do this, but there's lots of different options that are out there. And I think that's kind of what we're alluding to here.
Right. And because when I leave out of Portland, I usually take the train
Mhm.
to the airport. So there's tons of, I don't rely on just one way. There are so many ways.
Yeah. And then which airline were you flying on this time?
Korean. I always fly Korean.
Okay. I keep seeing the
Points.
I keep seeing the beautiful commercials that they've been doing for years with Korean Air, and it looks so luxurious with like the flight attendants all wearing this light blue, and everybody looks like they're giants standing next to the ship to the planes and stuff like that. It's meant to look luxurious, I think. Is
Well, I used to, they were one of my clients for years. And so I know the vice president of the airline didn't help me, by the way. But
aw.
I'd buy my tickets. But and I knew the advertising agency. I still know the people and that do all that all those advertising campaigns. And they do a really good job. But I like Korean Air. It used to be considered back in the day the cheapo airline. It's not. They're a really nice airline. They've come a long way, and I particularly enjoy, even though they're long stops sometimes, I really enjoy going through Seoul
Mhm.
because I love Seoul Airport.
Which I imagine is you took a flight directly from SeaTac to Seoul, correct?
SeaTac, Seoul, Hanoi.
Hanoi. Okay, okay. Double check. And then how long was the flight from SeaTac to Seoul first?
I want to say it was 14 hours
Okay.
ish.
And
I can't remember honestly. I think it was about 14 hours.
and then how long was your layover there?
On the way, my layover was only a few hours. On the way back, it was about 8 hours.
I don't like that.
Um, well,
I've done long layovers. I don't like that.
here's why I don't mind. If I'm going to do a long layover, it's going to be in Seoul because Seoul has so many airport lounges to choose from.
Okay.
One thing I recommend all of your travelers do is if you travel a lot, it's really worth it to get like the Chase Sapphire Preferred, in particular, as over and above the American Express. It's expensive to have per year, but if you do a lot of traveling, you get a free priority pass card. And with that priority pass card, you have lounge access all over the world. And in Seoul, there every lounge you go to, and there are about 4 of them you can do with your priority pass. There is a spread of food, free beer, free comfortable seats. You could take a nap if you wanted to. So there's a lot to do. And that's why I go through Seoul. If I'm going to have a long layover, no other place I'd rather be.
See, and when I did like, I usually like if you're gonna do, I like either a short layover or I like a much longer layover where it's a
Mhm.
day or so. In which case I can get out of the airport and then it's like okay, because like I'll have the one experience that keeps coming to mind for me is when I went to Venice one year. I flew from Maryland
Mhm.
to Munich, and I was in Munich airport for 9 hours before
Mhm.
my next flight would head over to Venice from there. And it just seemed like forever because there just wasn't a lot to do in the airport. And I felt like I was like,
Right.
I got a massage. That's great. That's an hour. But then, okay,
Sure.
8 more hours later, it's like, what am I going to do? It's all the same shops and I'm not doing a lot.
Right. Well, there is something important I forgot to tell your travelers about.
Hmm.
With Korean Air, when you go through Seoul, if you have a long layover of at least, I think, 3 to 4 hours, there are a couple of different tours free that Korean Airlines will take you um, during your long layover. It's kind of like just a bonus or a benefit. And they don't tell you about it until you land and you see the kiosk before you go through customs. And you can just sign up for a tour and they tell you where to go and it's completely free.
That
They
sounds
do city tours.
fantastic.
Yes,
Is it, I assume it's run by the state for tourism and travel.
probably. It's run by Korean Airlines in the state and it's 100% free. Doesn't matter what class of service, what your ticket price was. If you flew on Korean Air, they offer this to you. And I didn't go because I'd like to just hang out in the lounge, being I have access. But it is a wonderful option for people that would like to see a little bit of Seoul and doesn't even cost them anything.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that's a great money saving value. That's
It's
and it sounds like it would be great, especially if you were just
super.
there in the interim
Mhm.
passing through.
And the list tells you right there, if you've got, 3 hours, you can do this tour. If you've got at least 4 hours, you can do this tour. And, because it's in combination with Korean Airlines, they make sure to get you back.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Were you now since you were not in Saigon for that long before you headed over to Hanoi, I assume there was no pre-vacation destination
Oh,
time or anything
in
like that.
Seoul.
Oh, I'm sorry, Seoul.
Sorry,
Sorry.
Seoul. No, I chose not to. You can. I chose not to. I have stopped in Seoul before. I would not recommend just doing Seoul on your own in the wintertime.
Yeah.
I made that mistake
Why is
once
that?
before because I was so cold that I was with my sister and the same friend Karen. We ended up going outside and thought we got like 5 feet before we had to pop into a coffee shop and we bought a $15 cup of coffee. Didn't care, paid for it happily. But so yeah, it's
Wow.
very cold and very expensive. If you're getting the free tour on Korean, well, worth it. Doesn't matter what the season is because you're in a bus.
Okay.
But yeah, so it just depends on the season in Korea. That's all.
Okay. So here you are in Seoul. Now you're going to get to Hanoi. How far is it flight wise from Seoul to Hanoi?
Only a few hours.
Okay.
If my memory serves me, it was about maybe 4 hours at the most.
Okay. So you wouldn't think it would be that long because when we
It
look
may
at
have
the
been
map,
short.
it's such a small place. So
It may have been shorter. I'm not exactly positive, although you are going much further south.
oh, got it.
So
Okay. And so now you're in Hanoi. What are your accommodations like there?
we stayed at a lovely little hotel right downtown there. downtown. The whole thing is downtown. But there are lots of hotels to choose from. I would personally suggest to your travelers to choose something that's, Vietnamese owned, because as opposed to like a Marriott or something like that, only because you get the flavor of the country. They always come with breakfast, gorgeous breakfasts, and just lovely hospitality. And the room was delightful. It was very Southeast Asian looking, just delightful.
Excellent. Now, how does your itinerary work? Do you already have any pre-planned excursions? Are you guys going to kind of wing it when you're there? What's the plan?
We only had one pre-planned excursion,
Okay.
and that was the cruise that we took in Ha Long Bay.
Let me actually jump over to the pictures really quick here.
Sure. That's Ha Long Bay.
Okay.
You do need to book a cruise in advance for that, because and we did it 3 months in advance, so it's there are plenty of options. But I would recommend at least a 2-night cruise. Do not do the 1 night. Do not do the day cruise. We chose to get to Ha Long Bay on our own, but you can actually do it from Hanoi, and they will take you from Hanoi to Ha Long Bay and back, as part of the cruise price. That just included. We didn't use the option. Well, actually, I think we took the option there, but then we flew out of Da Nang, which is right near there.
I want to say that they've filmed movies in Ha Long Bay, and I can't remember them,
Yeah.
but I want to say there's like a couple of James Bond movies that they filmed there, and I think they filmed like a Batman movie or something like that, at least pieces of it there. So, I mean, it's a beautiful looking, and if you're listening on the podcast, I know that you're not going to be able to get the flavor of what we're talking about, but if you have the opportunity, jump over to the YouTube channel, to the Professor Travel, you'll be able to see the actual video, and some of these images are just absolutely gorgeous. What was this about? It was like a half-day cruise, or it was a full-day cruise?
2 day. It was a 2-day cruise.
Oh, it was a 2-day cruise.
2-night, 3-day.
Excellent.
2.5 days. And you really want that, because Ha Long Bay is huge. You just touch the surface, really, but even in a 2-day cruise, but you get the flavor in its plenty of time. The cruises are really nice, small boats. So there were, I think, 15 of us on the boat.
Just to confirm, this little boat that we're seeing in the first picture is not your boat.
No.
That was just like a little fishing vessel.
That's a local fishing vessel.
Yeah, okay. I just want to double check.
Yeah.
I was like, it's economy. There you go.
Yes, that was our cruise. No, the cruise ships are very nice, very small. I mean, actually, there were less. I think there were 10 of us. There were actually 10 of us on this particular cruise. All private cabins. Every cabin had windows to the outside. And it's really, you have to cruise Ha Long Bay, but you need to do these because you see it at sunset, you see it at sunrise. They stop a couple times, one on the only beach, and you can go swimming if you want. Or you can climb to the top of the mountain. I chose to just hang out, and my friend and I, kind of mixed with the locals a little bit, a lot of tourists mostly, but
Sure.
and took photographs and just enjoyed the atmosphere. And then there's another stop the next day they do at a cave, and then they take you to the fishing village. So we did the boat part of the cave. We walked up to part of the cave as well. Didn't go all the way because it was very strenuous. And I'm a wimp. And then the fishing village, which for me was a highlight. I would definitely recommend a cruise that includes the fishing village, which is why you have to do a 2-night tour.
Did they include in the tour your food in addition to your lodging?
All food.
Okay.
All food. There was a chef on board.
Nice.
The food was incredible. And all the cruises include a cooking class. Cooking is huge in Vietnam, primarily because, the French influence for so many years. So food and cooking is incredibly important in Vietnam. Eating there is safe. anywhere you eat, you're going to be pretty much safe, um, because such care is taken. And they gave us a cooking class teaching us to make spring rolls, and
Oh,
it was a
nice.
blast. Yeah, and then we all ate our spring rolls. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
That sounds like it's really, really quite amazing. Let me go back one slide here really quick to this image. There's a couple of, it looks like a couple of ladies selling their wares on the street. Where is this?
One was in Hanoi and the other one was in Haiphong,
Okay.
which after first we went to Hanoi, then for several days, about 4 days. Then we did the cruise for the 2 nights, and then we stayed in Haiphong one night to fly out, which is not far from Halong Bay.
Mhm.
And then we flew out of Haiphong, which it's like less than an hour away. We flew out of Haiphong down to Da Nang,
Okay.
um, to do that area. So this is very typical, though. This is how most wares are sold still. I mean, it used to be back in the day. It was on, pull carts, and some people still do it that way. But the ladies go along with their bicycles, and just delightful people. The Vietnamese people. I was a little worried being an American. How I would be perceived. Considering our invasion of Vietnam.
Yeah.
Um, no animosity, never. In fact, I felt the opposite. Just people were very welcoming. I felt comfortable saying I was American. They were excited. It blew me away. It really did.
I have a question in reference to purchases because I know when I was in um, Bangkok, barter seemed to be the big thing that was there.
Yeah,
Is it similar here as
it
well?
is. It is, and everything is so inexpensive. I mean, even less expensive than Thailand, and
Hmm.
they expect you to barter. In most cases, uh, it's
Yeah, actually, I want to pause there for just one quick second because my husband, when we were in Thailand, he was willing to take a price that was given to him at face value, and the lady was like
mm-mm.
freaking out because he didn't barter. She's like, "No, no, no, we." And she's
That's the
explaining
culture.
to him,
Yeah,
yeah, it's they're expecting you to barter. It's not an insult if you barter with them. In fact, that it's actually
a compliment.
expected for you. Yeah, exactly. So don't do anybody a disservice by either
Right.
A, paying more for something than it's worth, or B, not partaking in the culture of barter because it's actually
Right.
quite interesting. Even if you don't like to
Oh,
barter, just have
fun.
fun with it.
It's fun. They expect you to barter. We sometimes feel like, and you can get this where it's like where you're arguing over a quarter, but that's part of the fun, and they're expecting it. Don't cheat somebody, but do bargain because they want you to bargain. That's the culture.
Mhm.
Except ladies like this that are selling like baked goods and things. That's a fixed price because I mean they're literally charging maybe 50 cents for a dozen baguettes, so
What is in the other thing, by the way? I don't
the other
understand what
one I
that is.
think was sugar cane.
Was that sugar? Okay, I was like,
I
it
believe
looked like churros or something.
I believe
Yes.
that- no, I believe it was sugar cane, which is just incredible as well. But I mean, you're in Southeast Asia. And then the baguettes. It's not just rolls; they're French baguettes. So you can't go wrong.
Do you
Grabbing
know
a couple of baguettes.
do you know how long the French colonized Vietnam, just out of curiosity? Because the reason I'm asking is because it seems like there is a huge French influence in Vietnam.
Oh yeah, for at least a couple of 100 years, I believe.
Okay.
And I could be wrong. I did not check my
We're
history.
we're not history instructors.
Right, right.
We're
Exactly,
global business instructors. That's how it works.
exactly. But yeah, for quite some time, it's centuries, I believe. So it's very embedded in their culture. This French influence.
Absolutely. And you'll note that a lot of them are wearing masks. This is pre-pandemic, and a lot of them now, what was the rationale for that? Was it just is it just the smog in the air and stuff like that, or is it other?
No, no, it's not that smoggy there in Vietnam. This was shoulder season for them. It was, you see, they even have gloves
Mhm.
for them. It was very cold. Like I said, for me, it was like late summer. I just had a t-shirt on. So that's part of it. It's also dust. Asian cultures are very used to wearing masks, and they also wear a mask if they are feeling ill, to protect others. That is in the culture in all over Asia, every country you go to. But in this case, it was primarily probably for the cold and the dust.
Excellent. Okay. Now I'm going to skip ahead because we already went over that one. Talk to me about this photo or these two photos that I'm seeing right here. This is
Okay.
again on the cruise, or is it?
The one on the left is on the cruise. This is a fishing village, a floating fishing village.
Okay.
This is not something that's just there for the tourists. This is a living, working, floating village of people that fish for a living. That's how they survive. This is deep in Halong Bay, which you can only get to again with the 2-night cruises, and it's just fantastic. And you don't, of course, stop here. They do take you up to a place where you stop and you get to walk around a little bit. But this particular village, they take you to several. This particular village is just, it's just the people that live there, and they're so friendly. I mean, they get excited when they see the boats, the small boat. It's small boats you go in.
Excellent.
They get super excited and they're waving, and the children are happy. And there's a floating school, and just really just lovely.
Okay. And what is the picture I'm looking at on the right here? It looks like some kind of a bridge of some
It
sort with some.
is. It is a bridge. Now I'm gonna mess myself up here. I think it was built in like 1200, 1300. It's called the Japanese Bridge, and it is a covered bridge, and it's a walking bridge, but it's still in use, and it's in this is in Hoi An, in down just outside of, about 40 minutes, no, actually 20 minutes outside of Da Nang. And Hoi An has got to be one of my favorite cities in the world. Incredible. It's known as the Venice of the East. All canals everywhere. It is prone to, in sometimes, certain seasons during monsoon season, as you mentioned, to flood terribly. So you have to, really pick your time when you're going to Hoi An. But we had just a lovely 5 days there. We rented a motorcycle and drove around, a little motorcycle, and I stayed on the back. But I was a little nervous, but my friend Karen drives motorcycles, so I trusted her, and we had a blast. And we just, did our own thing. And you can rent them for like $5 a day.
And I've seen at least when I went over in Bangkok, and I've seen this in a couple of Asian countries, that over there, you see people pile up on these motorcycles. You see like families of like 4, 5, 6 people on a motorcycle sometimes, and it gets a little crazy. I'm like, no, but that's just how that's
what they do. You typically only 3 on these motorcycles because they're small. And I would not rent a motorcycle or drive anything in Hanoi. Walking across the street is an adventure. And in fact, a funny story in Hanoi. We had gotten so used to it, and I'm an aggressive traveler. I mean, I'm not scared of when I see a lot of traffic going in both directions with there no rules whatsoever. I'm very aggressive at stepping out into traffic and making my way across, which you have to do in Hanoi. You can't be timid. And there was one day when we were getting ready, I think it was like our 3rd day there, we were getting ready to cross the street, and there were 2 older American ladies, and they were just holding each other's hands, and you could see the fear in their eyes. And I just looked at them and said, ladies, just come with us. We'll get you across the street.
That was nice.
And I said to them, you can't be shy. They will stop for you. They're not going to hit you, but that's just the way they drive.
Awesome.
It's fun. The streets are packed, and it's just vibrant, and I love Hanoi.
Okay, that sounded perfect. Now, talk to me about these 2 pictures here, because this is really quite lovely, and I think it alludes, especially a little kid who's like smiling with the teeth missing in the front.
Yeah.
They're from.
I'm, again, as a cultural photographer, which I don't know if I said in the beginning.
You didn't, but you said it in all the other videos, but I'm glad you mentioned that. What exactly is a cultural photographer for my students that are listening?
A cultural photographer is really what I do is capturing the essence of a culture. So yes, I will do landscape. Yes, I do like the bridge. But those things are part of a country's culture or a society's culture. I mean, I do it domestically as well. But I capture a lot of people, everyday people, and some might call it street scenes, street photography, but it's deeper than street photography. So it really tries to capture the essence of a country, the people, faces, places, animals, whatever it might be. And that's what a cultural photographer is.
Excellent. So what are the two pictures that we're seeing here? They're
Okay.
adorable, by the way.
Thanks. The picture on both have a story. The picture on the left, we were in Haiphong for a day. That was just after the cruise, waiting for our flight. We decided to stay for a night and spend a better part of a day there to see what the little town was about. Now we were, I think, the only Caucasians there because it's not a highly, it's not a real touristy town. Or I shouldn't say touristy. It's not a place where a lot of tourists go. And it happened to be a school outing. And each of the different schools or the different, I think there were different grades, not different schools, were in different military costumes. That was their, not costumes, but that was their school uniform.
Okay.
So the little ones were in little Navy outfits. And then the older school were in these are, I think, like the 4 to 5 year olds. The other was the babies, the 3 year olds.
And again, for the people who are on the podcast, they're wearing all these are little kids wearing camo uniforms. It's really adorable.
This was the Army group.
Okay.
And they were taking pictures in front of a statue, which I have a photograph of it, but it's not here. The statue was really interesting. It is a statue, and it's I guess if you want to call it the patron saint of this town. It is we'll just call it the patron saint of the town, a female warrior. And her story was very, very interesting. The fact that it's a female warrior, it just really captivated me, of course, not having known the story or that it was even there. But we saw the statue in the middle of the square and we saw all these kids and we decided to stop. Now, first, before we approached the kids, the teachers came to us and wanted to take pictures with us.
Oh, wow. Okay. So reverse. That's interesting.
Yeah, because again, we were really the only Caucasians in this town. City. It was a city, sorry. And the teachers wanted to take pictures. So then, we kind of translated with our Google phones, can we take pictures of the children? And they were, of course, of course. And so we went over and we were hanging out with the kids and we were laughing with them and taking photographs and just delightful. It was such a nice experience, unexpected in this city that really didn't have a lot to offer as far as, things to see. This hit the mark. It was fantastic.
It's adorable, and I love all the little expressions on everybody. Some look like they're a little confused, others are just joyful and happy. There's a little guy who's kind of sleepy in the background. It's just, they're all hamming it up. It's hilarious. It's just such.
And then afterwards, more teachers. All the kids got back on the buses and left, and some of the other teachers were in a car. They stayed back and asked if they could take photographs with us. So it was really cute. It was really adorable.
That's fantastic. And then there's another picture here on the right-hand side. What are we seeing here?
Fantastic story. So the Vietnamese are very, very much excited to see foreigners and kind of want to include you in things. Well, there's a narrow pathway. These are train tracks we're all sitting on.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if you can see me in the picture. I'm in the back row, and there's a lady with very white hair. That's my friend.
That's your friend. Yep.
Yeah, and we're all doing kind of like this in the picture. It's a symbol of good luck and and thank you and what have you. We were walking along the train tracks. There is a train that goes by there twice a day. But it's well known for the houses being right on the train tracks. And the train literally, if you were hanging out a window, you could touch the train as it goes through.
Gosh.
It's crazy. So we're walking along these train tracks and this woman comes up to us and in fairly decent English, asks us where we're from, and we tell her. And she said, do you have some time? And we said, yeah, we're just, hanging out. She said, this is a culinary school and this is their final exam. Would you guys please be judges?
Oh, wow.
And
That's
we
kind of
said,
fun.
sure. And so we tasted all of the courses. We got a taste of all of the courses these students had
Oh my
created.
gosh.
Incredible food. I mean, each course was more incredible than the next. And it was all these young students that were training to be chefs. And it was very much Vietnamese, with some of it had very French influence, but the presentation was incredible. The food, very safe. Again, you can eat anything. Food was incredible. And then we got to score each one, and then we gave out the certificates at the end. So this is a picture of all of us with the students and their award and their place in the final.
Nice.
It
Wow.
was just what a wonderful experience. It was incredible.
That sounds like so much fun.
It
Wow.
was one of the best experiences I've had traveling.
Well, I don't know about that because these next two pictures look really fun too. So, again, for the people on the podcast, the left picture that I'm looking at looks like a bunch of colored lanterns, and definitely the right picture is of a little monkey. So, let's start with the left picture. Talk to me about this one because it is radiant in more than one sense of the word, and just glowing and beautiful.
Glowing. This is the town of Hoi An, the little city of Hoi An. Also one of my favorite places in the world now. I would go back there in a heartbeat. They have, in the evening, well, first of all, Hoi An is known as the City of Lanterns. And they have a lantern festival once a year. We happened to be there during the lantern festival. We got to set lanterns on the river, which was just beautiful, with the candles in them. We took a cruise up and down the river, but this is in across the river, just across the river from Old Town. Old Town is on the Old Hoi An is just on the other side, and not a huge river, but just on the other side. And every night it's like a festival atmosphere. And this is regardless of it being during the Lantern Festival. It's where the shopping is, where the street food is, where there are a lot of restaurants over there. And just the street food, first of all, you cannot go wrong. We just tasted everything. It was incredible. Right off the carts, again, super safe. There's no, I'm very careful, and it was super safe. But this was a display, a shop of lanterns. And so I did buy a couple as gifts and one for myself. But you just put a light in these. You can put an electric light, of course, because they're paper lanterns, but they're just gorgeous. And so this was one of the sellers.
It's beautiful. The picture is very gorgeous, and they can see it on your website, which we'll get in just a second, I'm sure.
Sure.
And then what's the next picture? It's a little monkey. It looks like he's kind of incognito in the brush area.
Yeah, this is the red shanked Langer, and he is. Excuse me, I'm going to have to turn my computer over here and plug in.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I'll go this way. There we go. Sorry about that. He is the red shanked Langer, and the red shanked Langer is very, very rare and quite endangered. They exist in very few places in Vietnam, and I think there maybe is one place in Laos that they exist.
Okay.
So it's incredibly rare. Now, this is not something on anybody's itinerary. This is not something that this is something that not a lot of Vietnamese even know about. This is a forest just outside of Da Nang, like right on the outskirts of Da Nang. And I had arranged ahead of time. Well, I had tried to arrange ahead of time. And finally, when I was in Vietnam, got a hold of the gentleman that knew about where these primates were. And we got a ride. He sent a driver for us, and he took us up into this forest. And then at one point there was a boulder that he could drive no further, and so we got out and we hiked. And we finally found them. They appeared, and one of the reasons that it was so important to me is because I do photograph wildlife, especially rare wildlife. And you can see, I mean, this looks like a painting. It looks like a doll. It doesn't
Yeah,
even look real. They're just so beautiful that I could have, I think we stayed there an hour and a half, 2 hours. I could have stayed all day just looking at these primates and photographing them.
even their little beard looks like it's primed, and they've got like these little cuffs on their hands or about on their
Uh-huh. And then
wrists.
the red legs, the whole red bottom.
Yeah,
And there's red, that red collar, but and the face looks just like
almost airbrushed or something. It's
airbrushed.
so
Right, right,
beautiful. It's so
right.
crazy beautiful.
Yeah, they're just incredibly beautiful, and they're expressive. So it was just, I just was, pinch me, I've actually found them,
That's fantastic. Now, before we get into the takeaways, what was the return flights back? Was there any delays or any challenges with that at all, or anything?
No, no delays, no challenges. The only thing is, be prepared for a longer layover on the return, just because of time differences. You're going back across the international date line the wrong way, so you're gaining time, but you might, most likely you're going to arrive home before you left, which is
Mhm.
always fun. So you get an extra day, but it's, there are usually long layovers, no matter what airline you take, just by virtue of when you have to leave your destination, the flights, and when they leave then again to the United States, to the
Okay.
West Coast.
So I know that you had delayed your trip until after your brother had passed away, but what are the pros of going on a trip to Vietnam?
Everything. There were no cons. It's something I highly recommend people to do, whether you do a guided tour, do it on your own like we did. I highly recommend it. One of the pros, and one of the things that I would add that we didn't talk about and I didn't show any photographs of, is going to the Hanoi Hilton,
Mm,
as we know it, Ha Long Prison. It's where John McCain was held, as well as many other brave soldiers of ours. And they didn't have a big welcome when they came home. It's a dark point in our history. But these soldiers were doing what they were told to do, and it's a nice way to pay homage to them, and to see what they went through. So those are, that was an important thing that I would like to add, that I think people should do and people should see. Um, the pros are just so varied. It's just a beautiful place. The people are lovely. Getting there may be a little bit more expensive, but when you get there, it's inexpensive. Every hotel we chose, and we chose at random, but every hotel we chose, the breakfasts were just, I mean, like you would go to sleep and, craving your breakfast the next thing in the morning. They were that good. And just, yeah, just an incredible place.
what were some of the items that you had for breakfast? Was it heavily French influenced?
You got very Asian influence, you got French influence, and you got Western, Western culture. They would have things like, juices and pancakes, and then they would have spring rolls, and they would have uh, just massive buffets of food. It was really speechless.
I was gonna say, do they actually do crepes there?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. You can get crepes. You can get. They have fantastic ice cream. We went to this place that was known for its ice cream, delicious ice cream. You can buy a cone right off the street. It just, you would think, for all intents and purposes, if you didn't know you were in Asia, you would think you were in Europe somewhere. It's really a great combination of European culture and Asian culture. And I think one of the reasons I really loved it so much.
Now, I know you said there's not necessarily cons to going to a place like this, but what are some things that a person, especially a first-time traveler to Vietnam, should be aware of?
Um, when going to Hanoi, there's that danger crossing the street. You've got to be really, careful, and also, you can't be timid. Um, there really aren't a lot of things to be aware of. I mean, other than the normal things when you travel.
Is
Watch.
there is there a crime element at all?
No, because it's communist.
Okay.
And I'm not advocating any one form of government over another. So I don't want your listeners to get me wrong,
No, no.
but in a communist environment, they tend to be a little bit more fearful of committing crime. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't happen,
Mhm.
but it's not as it doesn't permeate society.
Got it. Okay. And then, of course, like an example of a cost savings was obviously booking in the shoulder season. We talked about that earlier.
Yes.
As far as value adds, best practices, any other things that you want to highlight on this?
Well, the value add is book a hotel. The
Mhm.
hotels, normally, I'm a firm believer in all sorts of different ways to travel, whether it's Airbnb or something like that. When I was in when I was in Haiphong, we did an Airbnb, and
Okay.
that was a lot of fun. It was so cheap, and we had the whole place to ourselves. But I do suggest a hotel because you get these fantastic breakfasts with it
Mhm.
that really are a value add. It sets you up for the whole day, and they're not expensive. I mean, you can get a hotel for $40, $50 a night. So it's really, and then if you're splitting it between two people, you're looking at $20 to $25 a night.
That's amazing. So,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's definitely a do.
well, I again thank you so much. We always learn a lot when we interview you, and we have a great time together. So, again, Morissa, thank you so much.
My
Now,
pleasure.
if people wanted to see more about like the pictures that we saw, or just to kind of get in touch with you, they can reach you on your Facebook at is it is it Paul
Uh,
Frederico
Yeah,
Photography?
on Facebook, I use my full married name, Paul Frederico. On everything else, I just use my wife's last name,
Okay.
Frederico.
But on your website, it's fredericophotography.com,
Correct.
or on Instagram, it's Frederico Photography.
Correct.
So, and again, you can
And
go.
well, on my website also, if people go to my website, I do have some blog posts, and one of them, at least one of them now, is Vietnam, and I do intend to add more, but there is a Vietnam blog post.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Again, thank you so much for your contributions on this. We always look forward to hearing from you. So, thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Now, for my students that are out there, if you have any comments or questions, let us know. We want to hear about it. You can send me them at scott@theprofessortravel.com. If you're on YouTube right now and you'd like to be notified when new videos come out, hit that bell icon right above us right here. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. It helps us with the algorithm. It helps us as it helps us grow as a community. It really helps a lot. So thank you so much for that. If you like this content and you'd like to see more, give us a thumbs up. We really want to hear about that. And then finally, if you're on the podcast and you haven't already rated us, please feel free to do so. Again, we learn from everything that we do. So again, thank you so much for that. But until next time, I am Scott. This is the Professor Travel, and make every day a travel adventure. Take care, everybody. Bye bye now.